Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. It's now time for my meta predictions for Louisville Regionals this weekend. I'm going to be in attendance. It's going to be a gigantic tournament, of course, in this new format. I'm really excited to talk about the meta, what I think is going to be played, what might win the tournament, what might make top 8, what might flop, all that I'm going to predict in today's video. I've even added an extra segment to the end of the video. We're going to go on Trainer Hill, and I'm going to break down where I think each deck is going to lie in the meta percentage in day one. So I've added a bit of an extra segment to the end to make this video more spicier, and I hope y'all are going to go on to enjoy the video and let me know what you think of my takes down below. What are your predictions for Louisville Regionals this weekend? Let me know. It's going to be a crazy one, and if you're new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 18,000 subs, and if you go on to enjoy the video, leave a like. All right, so getting things started, I want to talk about Lugia, which, in my opinion, I think is going to be very popular. Lugia is coming off of almost a double tournament win. It almost won Dortmund. It won Joinville. Lugia is one of the only decks right now that kind of just beats up on the Dusknoir decks. We are in a bit of a Dusknoir format right now, and Lugia does really good into Dusknoir, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people are just going to be playing Lugia because A, they don't want to learn Dusknoir decks, and B, because Lugia has probably given them success before, because Lugia has been so good for the longest of time. So I think it's just naturally a deck people gravitate towards because it doesn't just lose to random junk like, not finding Buddy Pop in turn one, and it doesn't have all these convoluted combos and strategies like Terapagos or Charizard. It's a very straightforward deck where it's like you get turn 2 Arc, double Archeops out, you're probably winning the game. So that's why I think Lugia will be popular this weekend. And you know what? There's a good chance we'll see a Lugia in finals again. I wouldn't be surprised if that did happen. I don't know if there's going to be anything new added to the deck. I don't know what that will look like, but I think Lugia will be popular, and we could definitely see one in the finals. Maybe even win the tournament. Then, of course, Terapagos, the deck that has been getting so much hype and attention this past little while. There's a very good chance Terapagos ends up also being played by a lot of the big players. Like, top names are probably going to be playing Terapagos. I mean, we saw Tord almost, like, we got, what, top 8 in Dortmund? Like, asymmetrical cut. So, Tord, kind of playing the deck, all these master classes going online right now. There's a lot of Terapagos master classes on Metafy. This is going to cause the play rate of the deck to go up, but also it's going to cause, I think, a lot of the big players to play it. So very good chance we see Terapagos not only have a good showing this weekend, but end up being fairly popular. It is a deck that, maybe could win the tournament. It depends really who's on the deck this weekend, but, if any deck can win the tournament, Terapagos is definitely on that list too. But I wouldn't say that Raging Bolt isn't going to be a strong deck too. This is a deck that a lot of people are saying is going to be the most popular deck in the room. I don't agree with that, and I'll give my opinions on all that in the Trainer Hill segment of the video. But yes, Raging Bolt will most likely be in the top 3 most played decks day one. It's probably going to happen. I don't think it's going to be the most played deck because the issue with Raging Bolt is that it's more linear than the other big played decks. Like, people don't want to play this deck because it's too simple and there's not a lot of agency. Like, you don't really have a lot of control in what you do in a game. You're just going kaboom on the active. You know what I mean? Like, you're not really doing anything unique. Like, there's not really a lot of like agency in a lot of your losses with this deck. You're just losing games because, oh, your opponent, made a single prize board state turn 1, or, you whiff that turn 1 knockout. It's just there's not a lot of counterplay. There's not a lot of agency. But Raging Bolt is the type of deck that, newer players will gravitate towards at their first major regionals. Probably still going to be popular. I mean, Raging Bolt has been getting, like, some top 8s, recently. So, I mean, there's a chance it can make top 8. I just can never see Raging Bolt actually winning a tournament, though, I could eat my words. Now, Palkia Dusknoir is, I think, the other deck that is getting a lot of stock right now. This is a deck that is kind of not really going under the radar, but it's a deck that I think a lot of players are really not looking at compared to, like, Terapagos. Everyone's high on that Terapagos train, where the Palkia train, I think, is also just as good. Greninja EX Dusknoir Palkia is a very strong deck, and I can actually see this deck making a top 8 appearance once again. It did get top 4 in Dortmund. Stefan Ivanov did play it. And Stefan's list, I think, is probably the best way to play the deck going forward. And I think this deck is really, really good, and wouldn't be surprised if, it sees a bit of play. Regidrago is kind of a weird deck. I don't know how good this deck actually is right now. I haven't really put a lot of time into Regidrago like I did last format. I haven't really been a Drago believer, but I think Regidrago is pretty solid right now. It's got its, it's got its matchups. It's one of those decks that I feel like people have kind of put to the side a little bit and are like, nah, there's more important things to deal with right now than Regidrago. And it's one of those decks that can kind of stay relevant in the format. Probably still going to be decently played. I don't think it's going to be very popular, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few big names are on it. Like, we've seen Isaiah Bradner, stick with Regidrago, and John Eng. Like, there's a good chance, that, continues to repeat itself. I don't know if it's going to be that popular, but we'll have to see on that one. Again, my meta percentages, stuff like that, I'll talk about later. But, Drago could also be a deck that maybe can win the tournament. It's definitely a deck that, if it goes hot enough and it's, going first in most matchups, that's the other issue I have. There's too many decks wanting to go first right now that it kind of clogs up Regidrago's potential because it doesn't like going second as much. Dragapult is another deck that I think is going to see a little bit more play. I think Dragapult will be more popular, or is a better play than Charizard, I should say. I actually don't think it's going to be more popular than Charizard because Charizard is Charizard. It's always going to be popular because it's Charizard. Like, new players will also gravitate towards playing Charizard because it's Charizard. Though I think Dragapult is the better Stage 2 deck. If I'm playing a deck that uses Rare Candy that's not Dusknoir focused, like if my main attacker uses Rare Candy, I'm probably playing Dragapult. I think it's just a better deck right now. It has a better matchup into other Dusknoir decks. And it's going to Charizard, which is pretty good. Dragapult, Dusknoir without Pidgeot, probably the best way to play it. I would say it is. In my testing, anyways, I found Dragapult Dusknoir to be the best deck so far. And, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a popular deck. But I mean, like I said, though, I don't think it's going to be as popular as Charizard. I don't think Charizard is a bad deck or anything. I'm not saying it's a bad deck. I think it's still, like, pretty solid. But it's not the best play for the tournament, in my opinion. Like, I don't think Charizard is going to win the tournament at all. I don't think it's going to... I don't even know if there's going to be one in top 8, in all honesty. I mean, the highest placing Charizard in Dortmund was, what, top 32? It was, like, 20th place or something? Like, Charizard is not in a great spot right now, and I feel like it's getting bullied out of the format by the popularity of Terabagos and Dragapult and Palkia Dusknoir and stuff like that. It's not a bad deck, though, but it just feels like the format is not right for it. But you know what? It's crazy. This is still going to be a popular play for this tournament because people like themselves Charizard. The average newer player going to their first regionals is probably going to want to play Charizard because Charizard is, the coolest Pokemon in the world, apparently, right? So people want to play it because it's Charizard. They like it. It's a big, flashy Pokemon. It's popular. They want to play it because it's, a good card. Doesn't mean the deck is good. Like, if you're looking to win the tournament, don't play Charizard, but it's still going to be played. It's going to be popular. It's going to be more popular than Dragapult. I just don't think it's as good as Dragapult. But another deck that has kind of fallen off is Gardevoir. Another deck that I don't think is really in a good spot right now. I think Gardevoir is truly on its last legs. The aggression of the format, I think, is too much for it. I think this weekend is going to be a ton of big, boom, fast decks that use Greninja, Dusknoir, and Dragapult, like, stuff. Like, it's just, the meta's too hostile for Gardevoir, in my opinion. I personally wouldn't play it. I don't really play much Gardevoir anyways, but I would not. If I did, I would not even bother looking at this deck. I think it's just pretty dead right now. I don't even think, like, the slow version of the deck with, like, the Devos and stuff and the Klefki and the Fluttermane is that good. I think if you're going to play Gardevoir, you should probably still stick with Henry Chow's list from Baltimore due to it being able to keep up somewhat with the aggression of the format, though that is still not fast enough, I think, to keep up. But, we'll have to see on that. I mean, I could be wrong. Gardevoir is a deck that sometimes always sneaks its way into a decent placement, but I just truly think, one, it is not going to be very popular. Pretty good chance you go through the entire tournament, day 1, day 2, without seeing a single Gardevoir. It's just not in a good spot right now. I think it's a worse play than Charizard. Charizard is a better play than Gardevoir, but I think they're both, like, on that level of, like, they're too slow and weak right now to keep up with some of the big, fast decks in the format. Though Charizard, I think, is a better deck. Now, I want to talk about stall and control for a sec. Now, the stall control archetypes, I think, they're decent. They're not bad. I think that there are some issues. I think Dusknoir's popularity is not ideal for these decks. But the thing is, well, more or less with control, not stall. The people that play these decks tend to be people who usually play these archetypes anyways, I don't think a random player going to their first ever regional is going to play stall unless they actually play it. Like, you're rooming with your buddies in your hotel and one of them convinces you to try Snorlax for your first tournament. I don't think that's happening. So, like, this is a deck that really is only played by people who actually play the deck and put time into it. More the same with control, with especially is like the one deck, I think, like, the only people that really play control to tournaments, especially to get good finishes, are literally people who are known to play control or at least put in a lot of time with the deck. So I don't think these decks are going to be popular. In my opinion, you don't have to respect Snorlax this weekend. I'm not saying you should take an L to it completely, but you know what? If you take an L to Snorlax, not the end of the world. I just don't think the control stall decks are as popular right now. They're not in bad spots, but I just don't think they're going to be very popular, though I do think they're not in the worst spot ever. In my opinion, I think Control is slightly better than Snorlax, but I think they're both decent decks, and I don't think they're going to be very popular. Combining them together isn't going to make up a huge meta share. But, of course, Miraidon is definitely looking interesting. This deck, I think, kind of gets a little bit better for this tournament just because of the fact that we are seeing more Lightning Week decks be popular, like Palkia and Lugia, for example. And Miraidon can feast on those decks. Not to mention, Charizard is kind of fallen off a little bit, and that's a good thing. Though I think Miraidon still has trouble into like Drago and Dragapult. So I'm not saying the deck is perfect right now, because like there are still decks that are hostile towards it. But I mean, if you're somebody who's been one-tricking Miraidon and have maybe left the gravy train, there's probably never a bad time to play Miraidon than right now, due to Charizard falling down a little bit in popularity and due to Lugia potentially being popular. Miraidon is just a really good 2/2/2 deck. It might be doing the 2/2/2 better than most decks can right now, especially into Terapagos, where you can go turn 1 amp if they don't put a Terapagos down. Because you gotta put Terapagos down, you're gonna go Miraidon, Zapdos, knock it out. But if they don't, you can just go Iron Hands instead, and then initiate the 2/2/2 race, and you're probably winning that point. So there's a lot of play with this deck. I think Miraidon, honestly, there's a good chance this could actually end up being a little bit more popular than most expect. But it's not in a bad spot right now. It's actually a deck I could see making top 8. This is another deck I actually have on my radar of a deck that maybe somebody's going to squeak into top 8 with it. 100% can happen. Now, Gholdengo. I like Gholdengo a lot right now. I've been playing a bit of the deck myself. I don't know if I'm playing it to the tournament yet, but it is on my list of decks I'm considering, and I think Gholdengo's a lot of fun. It's just another one of those like 2/2/2-ish race decks. It has a lot of things going for it. It is a Palkia deck at the end of the day, or at least it feels like it can be a Palkia deck. Like sometimes you play this deck like you're playing Palkia, but you just have the ability to use Gholdengo as not only a backup attacker, but as a draw engine. I really like Gholdengo. It's fun to play. I don't know how popular it's going to be. I know it's got a good finish, and it's been getting a little bit of hype online. I don't think it's going to be too popular, though. I'm a big fan of the deck, so we'll have to see where this deck goes for the tournament. I don't know if it's going to make top 8. Probably not, to be honest with you, but, you know, somebody might make a top 32 with it. It's possible for sure. Now, Lost Box, another dark horse of the format. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, another deck I've actually been looking into myself this format and potentially bring it to Louisville. I think Lost Box is... Once again, if you're going to play Lost Box, probably not the worst time to play it. I know Regidrago is still good, and honestly, there's a good chance Drago, is still a decently popular deck, but due to the variety in the format, it's never been a bad time to play Lost Box. If Drago is BDIF, okay, yeah, don't play Lost Box, but Drago's not, in my opinion, the BDIF. It's also not going to be as popular as it's been before, which is a good thing for Lost Box. So, honestly, if you're somebody who likes Lost Box and have been, playing a little bit of it before the tournament and are considering it, honestly, pull the trigger. It's not in the worst spot right now. It's playable. It just really depends on what you're playing the deck with. This Lost Box list that I'm looking at won an online tournament recently, so maybe it's with Moon, maybe it's without Moon. Who knows? I do think you need to play at least some kind of lightning Pokemon in your deck, like Raikou, Thorns, or Hands. But yes, I think Lost Box is strong. It's another deck that also can use Greninja pretty effectively. It can initiate a really good 2/2/2 race with Greninja Blood Moon. You have Sableye, which is another card that is really kept unchecked right now. No one's playing Jirachi, obviously. The speed of the deck is really good. Like, this deck is very fast. And that's, I think, how you have to play it. Like, I don't think Sablezard is good at all. I think Sablezard sucks. This deck is a lot better than Sablezard because you're going fast, and you have to keep up with the speed of the format. So, wouldn't be surprised if Lost Box did okay this weekend. Palkia Noctowl is not as good as Palkia Dusknoir, but it's not terrible either. It's not the worst deck you can play. It's, again, not as good as the Dusknoir variant. I think the Dusknoir variant is always going to be the better build, but it's still not bad because Noctowl is naturally a good card with Palkia because of the ability to be able to grab, like, Prime Catcher Cologne and stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few Palkia Noctowls made day 2. I just wanted to highlight this. We're kind of getting more into, like, the niche stuff now. But yeah, this is definitely a deck that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody, made a couple day 2s of it, though it's not as good or popular as Dusknoir Palkia. Next up is Dragapult Pidgeot. I think this is going to be the least popular build of Dragapult. If I'm going to be playing against somebody with a Dreepy in their deck, I'm not expecting them to mention Pidgey. I'm going to be expecting them to not be playing the Pidgeot build, because I think that is the worst version of Dragapult. But Dragapult isn't bad with Pidgeot still. A couple people might play it. You still have to expect it. Yeah, Pidgeot Pult isn't terrible. Wouldn't expect to see it do as well as the normal, like the one that won Dortmund. Klawf is a weird deck right now. Okay, look, this deck did good in Joinville. Does that mean the deck is actually legit in this format? Probably not. This is still probably like a mid deck. It's not the worst deck you can play. If you're expecting to hit a lot of Tropicos, and like I said, I think a lot of the big players are going to be on Tropicos this weekend. It's not the worst deck. I don't even know if it beats Tropicos, though, to be honest. But you know what? This deck maybe can beat Tropicos more than other decks can. I don't know. But if it does, you know what? There you go. Play Klawf to the Louisville Regionals. Now, I don't think we're going to see that much Klawf. Like, maybe one in day 2. I don't think this deck's going to convert very well. It's kind of mid, but like I said, if somebody hits enough Tropicos, I don't know. Maybe the deck does good. The other thing I will mention about Klawf, however, though, is, like I said, Miraidon is starting to get a little bit more popular again. So is Thorns. Those are two decks that this deck kind of does really good into. Now, speaking of Iron Thorns, I forgot to mention Iron Thorns real quick here, but I do want to mention that Thorns is actually not in a bad spot going into this tournament. It actually feels like Thorns could be a decent play. And I'm not going to lie, I would be lying to you if I said that Thorns wasn't a deck I have looked at for Louisville. It's definitely not in a bad spot. It is really good into Lugia. Lugia is going to be very popular in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if Thorns made it to top 8. Maybe not win the tournament, but you know what? It's not really the worst time to be playing Quad Thorns. It's not in a bad spot right now. It doesn't seem like a terrible deck for the tournament. And it might be pretty well positioned. Is it better than Miraidon, though, is the question. I'm not too sure on that one. They're both lightning decks, but they both do different things, right? So, I don't know. Definitely an interesting one for sure. Not many decks are respecting it. Like, Charizard might not be playing Cologne. Drago might be playing Cologne, but they might not be playing Cologne. Like, I don't know. It's one of those decks that you just kind of don't know where it's going, but like Thorns definitely feels like it could see a bit of play this weekend and has a good run. Like 1 in top 8 definitely is very possible. Very, very possible, actually. This deck is definitely something we might see 1 at least in top 8. I think we might see a decent amount of Thorn this weekend. I'm just going to put it out there. I don't know if Ancient Box is very good for this tournament, though. I wanted to mention the Ancient decks here. Ancient Box seems a little underwhelming. I don't think it's the worst deck still. Maybe it's one of the better, like, one-prize attacking decks, but I'm not sure Ancient Box is in the best spot right now. Kind of struggles into Briar. Not as good into the Dusknoir decks because they can out Greninja, but I don't know. Ancient Box doing well. Wouldn't surprise me. It's not the worst deck in the format. Somebody might play it as like a secret, like rogue underdogs type play and have somewhat of an okay run. A couple in day 2, maybe 1 in top 64 wouldn't surprise me. Turbo Moon's another deck, kind of under the radar right now. It's not the worst play. Is it the best Turbo deck is the question, though. Is it better than Miraidon or Bolt? I'm not too sure, but Moon seems to sometimes just go really fast, go really hot, and somebody has a good run with it. We saw it in Baltimore, we saw it at Worlds, and very possible we could see the same thing happen again in Louisville. Just another Roaring Moon player just runs really hot in the tournament, does really good, and does pretty good. Now, the problem with Moon is a bit more fragile into like the Dusknoir stuff, I think, than the other Turbo decks, but Moon does have advantages. It, being able to knock anything out is kind of insane, and you have the aggression. A lot of the time, this deck is attacking first. Like, most games, you're getting that turn 1 attack off. It's a very easy deck to attack first with, and definitely is very strong. One of the other advantages of playing this deck is everyone's choosing to go first right now. This deck loves to go second, so that could be another big deal for somebody making a deep run with it. Shenpao, another deck that I wouldn't be surprised if somebody made like day 2 with. Just kind of the underdog type deck. It's not as good as Palkia, in my opinion. Also, it's kind of fragile to like Dusknoir and stuff, but Shenpao isn't terrible. If it goes first, it's probably beating the Dusknoir deck. So you can like immediately Greninja their Duskulls and stuff. It can initiate the 2-2-2 race fairly easily thanks to the help of Hands and Greninja. Like any deck that uses Greninja right now, in my opinion, is actually pretty good. This is why I mentioned Lost Box earlier, and why I mentioned like the other Palkia variants is because they all use Greninja, and Greninja is not bad right now. And this deck can use Greninja, can use Iron Hands. It's not bad. It just kind of needs to go first, and that's like the only problem with it, but it's not the worst play for the tournament. Gouging Fire, wanted to mention this. We got a couple of like dog rogue stuff to mention here. Just some like wild cards. Gouging Fire in day 2 would be kind of cool to see. One did make day 2 in Dortmund. I think it even won in the juniors division at Dortmund. Like this deck actually, I think, won a tournament. So like, who knows? Maybe somebody will make day 2 of Gouging Fire. I wanted to mention that as another funny turbo deck. Bayonet Gardevoir is another deck, or like even Bayonet Dusknoir for that matter. But Bayonet definitely feels like a deck that people are underrating right now. Definitely wanted to mention Bayonet here going into this tournament. Somebody might make day 2 with this Gardevoir build. It's been happening. I mean, you got top 16 in Dortmund. That's not a fluke. And then finally, Venomoth Frostlass. I just wanted to quickly highlight this. I don't think this deck is insane, but it is a cool anti-meta deck. And you know what? If there's any time for a Venomoth Frostlass deck to make day 2, it might happen in Louisville. I would love to see it happen. This is my wild card pick. I have all these random wild card picks. I had Reggie's. I wanted Reggie's to get day 2 in Dortmund. Didn't happen. But now I want Venomoth Frostlass to get day 2 in Louisville. It may happen. All right, so here is the next segment of the video. We're going to be talking about the meta percentages, and I'm going to go over why I think them. So we have the Trainer Hill data. The tier list, I just randomly put them on the tier list. There's no like actual like order of the, but I need to put them in the tier list to like put them in the meta predictions, basically is what I'm trying to say. So I think Lugia is going to be the most played deck. My prediction is Lugia is going to be 15% of the meta. I just think Lugia is in a better spot than Bolt. Bolt will still be at least 13% in my opinion. 12 to 13% is probably where Bolt will be. Bolt is just going to be popular because it's Raging Bolt. I don't think it's as good as Lugia, though. If you're going to play a deck like that, I just play Lugia. Lugia is a better deck, but Bolt will still be popular. Again, 13% would be very much, I think, where it's going to be. I think Lugia will still be the most played deck. There's a high chance Lugia is going to be the most played deck in Louisville, just because more people are attracted to it over Bolt because it's not as robotic and easy to pilot and straightforward. Lugia does have a lot of different lines, but it is something similar where you just set up and just go off on the opponent. So very good chance Lugia is most popular. Bolt will still be very popular. Like, it's a toss-up between the two, but I still think Lugia will be popular than Bolt. I think Trobagos will be close behind, though. I think Trobagos is going to be at least third most played deck at 11%. Again, the hype for this deck has been unreal. The issue with the deck is the skill ceiling is a little bit higher. I think, like I said, though, a lot of the big players might be on Terapagos this weekend, which is probably going to warrant itself a decent run this tournament. So I wanted to highlight Terapagos Dusknoir real quick, also as the third most played deck. Charizard will be fourth most played deck just because it's Charizard. Like I said, though, earlier in the video, I don't think Charizard is as good as Dragapult is as a play for this tournament, but because it's Charizard and because casual players like to play Charizard, it's still going to be played. It's still going to be popular, even though I don't think the deck is very good. It's like Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is not a very meta-defining deck, but it'll be popular because it's Raging Bolt. Similar case with Charizard. Charizard is a better deck than Raging Bolt, but I just don't think it's like the greatest play for the tournament. I don't think it's going to win the tournament. Still be at least around 10% in my opinion. I think Dragapult will be 9%. I'm combining the Dragapult variants together here. I think Dragapult, good chance it'll be at least 9% of the meta. It won't be as popular just because it is Dragapult. Maybe people are like scared to play it due to like the bad Bolt matchup or whatever, but I can still see Dragapult being the 5th most played deck, at least 9%. Regidrago, I think, will be around 8%. Another deck that the hype's just not there for the deck. I think the deck is good, and, you know, good players will still probably play it, but I can't see the deck being any higher than 8%, in my opinion. Another 8% deck, I think, is going to be Palkia Dusknoir. Another deck that's been getting a lot of hype recently, and I think is going to increase in play a little bit for this tournament. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Palkia and Drago be at least 8 to 9% of the meta. Very good chance that ends up happening. I think Dragapult will be a little bit more popular than Regidrago. I mean, Drago might be more popular than the other version of Dragapult, the non-Pidgeot build, but if you're combining the two together, which the day one graph usually does, then, you know, Dragapult will be more popular than Regidrago. Miraidon might be 7% of the meta. I might be maybe putting it a little bit too low, but it is still like a deck I don't think a lot of people are really put on their radar right now. I think a lot of people would rather play Bolt or Terapagos or something like that. But Miraidon has a good chance of being like 7% of the meta. Iron Thorns, I think, like I said, this deck doesn't seem bad for this tournament. Like I said, I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't thinking about the deck myself for this tournament. Good chance maybe Iron Thorns ends up being 6% of the meta. It could happen. 5 to 6% wouldn't shock me. Probably going to see at least 5% other decks, like in the other category, obviously, like Cloth and stuff. Putting Snorlax and Control together will probably be 4% of the day one meta. And then I think Gardevoir will be 2%. Turbo Moon will also be 2%. Just decks that nobody's really looking at right now. Gardevoir is just falling off a lot. I don't expect Gardevoir to be very popular at all. I don't think Moon will be very popular, but there will still be some people playing it just because it's like Raging Bolt, basically. It's the same logic, except, you know, it's not going to be as popular as Raging Bolt. It's similar, you know what I mean? So that's, in my opinion, what the day one meta will look like for the Louisville Regional Championships. And yeah, let me know what you think of them down below. What do you think of the day one meta share? What do you think the day one meta share? What are going to be the 3 most popular decks? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, if I had to guess what deck can win the tournament, I would put money on Lugia, Terapagos, or like Regidrago, maybe. Probably going to see 1 Thorns in top 8. A Miraidon or Thorns in top 8 wouldn't shock me. I think it's possible. Dragapult in top 8, very possible too. Raging Bolt maybe makes top 8. Maybe. Roaring Moon, same thing. Palkia Dusknoir, 1 at least will be in top 8. For sure. Snorlax, 1 in top 16. Thorns, like I said, 1 in top 8. Drago, I think there'll be 1 Drago either in top 8 or outside of top 8. Like just outside of top 8. Like maybe bubbled or something. Or it was 1 win away from asymmetrical cut. That's my prediction for Louisville. Let me know what you think of the predictions down below. And if you're going to be in attendance at Louisville, don't be afraid to come up and say hi to me and all that good stuff. And yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait for it. If you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. Help me in the road to reaching 18K subs. And I'll catch you on another video very soon. Bye-bye.